Hello, I'm Jim Dye. We're going to talk about risk management today, and there's several different kinds of risk management, but the first thing you need to ask yourself is, why do I want to listen to him? Well, to build some credibility here, let me first of all tell you that I chaired the State Risk Management Committee and the National Association Risk Management Committee. But more important than that is maybe for over 20 years, if our agents have gotten sued, they've ended up in my office, and we're going to talk about some of the things that get agents into trouble. But there are several different kinds. There's two different kinds of risk management, in my opinion. Number one is the kind of risk where there's civil liability, the liability from a lawsuit brought by an unhappy customer. That's important, but that's another class. What I'm going to focus on today is going to be more of a regulatory risk liability, where you run afoul of government regulations, mandates. We'll touch on a few of the civil liability type matters as well, but those will be something for another class, another time. So most of the things we talk about today are going to be things that are considered common sense, and it's embarrassing to violate them. Everybody knows that you do not engage in price fixing with a competitor, or everybody should know that, and it's sort of taken for granted. Everybody probably understands by now that you don't tell a customer based upon his race, national origin, religion, etc., that you need to take them to this area or that area. You don't make those kind of decisions, and if you did, you'd be embarrassed if you were caught running afoul of that regulation. We're also going to talk about, though, new ways, new changes in the market that have brought new applications of these old laws. We're going to discuss later on some areas where the practices of our company differ from the commonplace. They differ from the boilerplate that is taught at most real estate companies, and you'll see some benefits of that. We're going to hopefully learn a few sales tips along the way. Later on, I'm going to invite you to the real risk management course that I teach that talks about where we deal with the things that agents have done over the last 20 years that have gotten them in trouble. What you'll find is after you've gotten your license and after you've been productive for a while, you'll develop some habits, and the things that make you a good real estate agent, a productive salesperson, will also end up often being the things that get you into trouble in a court of law. They'll be the things that make you vulnerable. And so those are important things to talk about, but they're things for people who have a little bit of experience under their belt. But I will say that as the principles we talk about in that course, a subsequent course, have filtered through our company, our lawsuits have dropped from a maximum of about 26, 27 active files at one time down to a low of about 6 or 7 lawsuits. But as I said, you'll be better able to appreciate that course and its principles with a little experience. As I teach this class to new agents, when their agents are in the classroom, I'm concerned that your perspective and how this class comes across. And I can't look you in the eye and see how this class is going, but I do not want the baby agent to walk out of here feeling like you've got to be perfect. You don't have to be perfect. Nobody is. The only person that expects you to be perfect is going to be the plaintiff's attorney. But this is important because lawsuits and penalties are serious business. They don't happen very often, though. And if you walk out of here thinking you could get hit with a lawsuit, it's like walking out of here being concerned about being hit by lightning. It's possible, but statistically, it's not likely. And so if you wait until you know everything before you do anything, you're not going to make it in this business. So don't walk out of here paralyzed by fear. Another reason this material and understanding these principles is important is that being a defendant in a lawsuit or any regulatory action is a serious matter. It's a serious matter because it's costly, not in terms of your exposure, not in terms of your errors and omissions deductible or financial resources it necessarily consumes. It's serious because what it does to your productivity, what it does to your ability to earn a living. In 1981, I got sued, and in 1984 it went to court. Now, for those of you who remember what the market was like in the early 80s like this, rates had gone up into the teens, and by 1983, rates came down to 12%. In 1983, when rates dropped to 12, my income jumped from low 30s to about $64,000. my lawsuit went to trial in 1984, and that was the only year that my income did not jump. I dropped back about $10,000 in my earnings, and that was due to the distraction, the pain of this lawsuit, and how it took me out of business. What I found over time was that people who are 90% focused in the real estate business are about half as good, half as effective, half as productive as those as they are when they're 100% focused. And that could be something positive. It could be something negative that could destroy your focus. The lawsuit's one of the negatives. When Tommy Brigham and I were young and competitors, I ran into him one day and said, "Brigham, how are you doing?" He said, "Well, I'm doing great." He said, "But it seems like I just had this baby a few weeks ago. It seems like all I've been able to do since having the baby is stand over that crib and say, 'You're my son.'" And it was a lesson to me, because having been through the lawsuit and seen what can happen even when a positive thing like a marriage or a birth, if it can distract you, something negative such as a divorce, death, lawsuit, could make you less effective. Lastly, so that's what makes these matters important. It affects your earnings. Lastly, is most of the regulatory matters are not covered by our E&O insurance. So for those sort of things, fines, for instance, are not covered by E&O insurance any more than if you run a traffic light. Then you're not covered by your insurance, no matter how high the fine would be. So that's the background of what we're going to do here. If I'm not a teacher, and I talk fast, you can turn down the speed on me if you need to make this go a little bit better. The next part of our class is one of my favorite parts. I'm going to ask you to open your material that's before you there to the section titled Important Message About RESPA. That's several pages, and if you'll take a few minutes to read the section on RESPA now, it should take between 5 and 10 minutes. I'll give you a chance to stop and look at that material.